Well, joining us now, CNN political commentator and former Obama administration official Van Jones, Republican consultant and founder of 1776 Project PAC, Ryan Girdusky, and the host of Can We Please Talk podcast, Mike Leone. Glad to have all three of you here this evening. I'll begin with you, Ryan. Aurora's Republican mayor, he has set the record straight. He has said Aurora is, quote, not a city overrun by Venezuelan gangs. The reality is that the concerns about Venezuelan gang activity have been grossly exaggerated. Now, these are his words. So why does Trump continue to exaggerate when the person who runs the city says otherwise?
Well, there were at least 10 Venezuelan gang members who were arrested in Aurora, Colorado. The Denver Gazette reported that officials in the city, including the police department, knew that gangs from Venezuela were operating within apartment complexes, demanding rent, demanding fees from tenants, taking money, having guns, and didn't say anything about it for quite some time. It is not like it didn't happen. It did happen. And the truth of the matter is, over the course of time, since 2016, a majority of Americans support mass deportation. A majority of Americans want to reduce legal immigration. What Trump is saying, the fiery language he's using, is in agreement with most people on the issue of immigration. That's why he's trusting immigration far more than Kamala Harris.
Ben, you're shaking your head no. Why?
Well, because Trump's lying. And look, I live in Los Angeles. I started my family in Oakland. I'm not a part of the pro-crime lobby. I'm very concerned when young men get pulled into bad situations, organizations get exploited. But you have to deal with it with truth, and you have to deal with it with precision. And when you say a whole town has been conquered and a whole town has been invaded, when in fact you have a couple of hot spots, which you have in lots of places, that the local authorities are dealing with effectively, that's not good, because what you're doing, you start to demonize a whole set of people and marginalize a set of people and create alarm. So I don't like people pimping pain. I don't like people pimping fear. And that's what Donald Trump is doing. And so, yes, you're correct. Some people are concerned about immigration, but they're concerned about actual facts. So you don't, if those are legitimate concerns, you don't need an apocalyptic narrative fueled by lies that fly in the face of facts.
Well, Mike, let me bring you in here because it's almost a chicken and the egg game in some respects, right? There are concerns that people have about immigration, about border policies, about crime in America. But then there is the exaggeration to the demonization that Van is speaking about that makes people feel exponentially differently than they would otherwise had based on what's happening. So which comes first? Is it Trump who is making these statements and therefore fueling people's anxiety? Or is it that there are people who are fueling his rhetoric? What do you think?
Yeah, and I'm down here in Miami, the gateway to Latin America. So let me call a little bit of the balls and strikes here. And let me use another sports analogy, right? In the NFL, there's two penalties. There's running into the kicker and there's roughing the kicker. Both look like the same, but they're different penalty calls, right? One's more egregious. And I think to Ryan's point, right, he's talking about the more egregious part of what Trump's rhetoric is doing right now, because there are underlying issues. Just look at what's happening in Springfield. There are more migrants that are coming into the area. The police department there and how they handle it. There's a language barrier with dealing with Haitian immigrants. So there are issues, fundamental issues that are administrative. But the administrative part, to Van's part, is not sexy. It's not sexy to talk about the crisis at the border and to talk about the administrative issues with the backlog of asylum cases and all of that, hiring more agents to help, right? None of that is sexy, Laura. So what Trump is doing is trying to, what Van said, he's trying to over-amplify it. But the data doesn't show that, because violent crime in Aurora is down 14%. Assaults are down 4% year over year. Men lie, women lie, numbers don't. So I'm the ultimate balls and strikes umpire here, as you know, Laura. Like, there is an issue, but it's so much more sexier to make it this trumped up version, no pun intended, which is what Donald Trump is doing, when you could actually talk about the core issues that are fundamental, because the people that are working on the ground are saying it's an issue.
Well, I love the analogy. I remember that. The roughing and the running into a kicker, a really good one. Although baseball fans everywhere right now are like, you couldn't give me a baseball analogy, Mike Leone? What are you doing right now? Okay, what are you doing? You couldn't do that? It's a big night in America for baseball. Okay, thank you very much. Whatever. Right. Move on to that one. Ryan, let me bring you into this, Ryan. There's a new interview in the New York Times with CNN contributor Lula Navarro. And she talks to Senator JD Vance about the outcome of the 2020 election. Listen.
Do you believe he lost the 2020 election?
I think that Donald Trump and I have both raised a number of issues with the 2020 election, but we're focused on the future.
Senator,
Lulu.
yes or no?
Okay.
Did Donald Trump lose the 2020 election?
Let me ask you a question. Is it okay that big technology companies censored the Hunter Biden laptop story?
I mean, that was like 5 chances. We played several, 5 chances to say whether Trump lost in 2020. He deflected answering the questions with questions. I mean, you used to work for Senator JD Vance. Why not just say an answer to the question that sounds like what rhymes with either Bess or Doe?
I have worked for him in the past in the Senate race. I don't work for him currently in his vice president's race. I just want to be clear. The whole idea of the 2020 election being this linchpin for Democratic voters as the #1 issue that is motivating them is certainly true for people in the media. It's certainly true for a lot of reporters, and it's certainly true for a lot of Democratic donors. But the average American really has put this behind them, and it's become a thing where you want to either get JD to sit there and attack the president is what the media is really trying to do, and he's not going to do that. So it's kind of a non-thing, especially getting a chance to speak to the future vice president possibly about really concerning issues rather than talking about the outcome of an election that is over. And Joe Biden is currently sitting president, although I'm not sure if he even knows that yet.
Well, Van, first of all, is it a non-issue? And I'll ignore the last comment for a second, get to the meat of the matter. Is it a non-issue for you?
It's an issue for Donald Trump, who continues to raise it. I mean, if it's such a non-issue, then why does he talk about it in every speech? The reason that it's an issue for people who you might want to write off as media people is because this is a part of a pattern that we've seen repeat in history and in other countries. When you have a major leader that tries to undermine faith in democratic institutions, like the courts, like elections, like the media, those dominoes tend to fall in a certain direction toward more authoritarian rule. And so that's why people are concerned. Now, it's the easiest thing in the world to say, yes, he won the election, and he's going to lose. Yes, Biden won the election, and Kamala Harris is going to lose the next one. That's what any normal politician would say. When you have a politician like a JD Vance or like a Donald Trump who will not behave on the campaign trail like a normal politician, it raises fears that they will not behave in office like a normal elected official, and that's where the concern comes from.
I mean, Mike, it seems as though there's a fear, maybe if you're Senator JD Vance, of alienating a group of people that, to Ryan's point, believes it's a non-issue, or on the other hand, maybe ticking off the person, you're biting the hand that is feeding you with a running mate position. Is that the motivation as to why he won't just say, or is it, as Ryan indicates, look, it's just some trap he refuses to fall for?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think it's a little bit of column A and column B, right? Like what Van was talking about there, you need to answer of whether or not you would continue the peaceful transfer of power, if you would continue these institutions that we rely on in place. But when you look at voter issues, to Ryan's point, democracy tends to rank a little bit, I can't believe it does, but it tends to rank lower and the 2020 election. Now, back to Van's overall point, right? If it's a non-starter, why does he keep bringing it up? Laura, you and I have talked about this before. The way we're framing questions when we ask the former president why he won't accept the results of a 2024 election, he's participating in the process. Of course, he's going to accept the results. I know what happened on January 6th, but you don't participate in something that you feel like you've been wronged in 3 different times. 2016, he feels like he won by more. 2020, he feels like he didn't lose. You don't participate in something 3 straight times. And I think for JD Vance, the reason he's pivoting is typical Republican strategy message, right? Answer through the question and get what you want to get out about it. And so I think for JD Vance, he's doing the right thing by pivoting and reframing the question. But I think it is imperative of us to kind of move away from it and reframe the question in a different direction about trusting the institutions and putting this fear and doubt into the public.
Ryan, what's your thought?
This is just ridiculous because I'm sorry, Stacey Abrams never accepted the results of her 2018 election. Hillary Clinton said Russia stole the 2016 election. Democrats denied the 2000 elections. Democrats denied the 2004 elections. Every election, Democrats don't win. They kick and stamp their feet. They sit there and they say it's stolen. They say we need to pack the Supreme Court, make Puerto Rico and DC a state, make sure that other voters are disenfranchised, give citizenship to illegal aliens, making sure Americans' votes counts for less. They don't listen. If you're going to care, I care about democracy. I care about democracy.
You don't care much.
I care about keeping it. Yeah, I do clearly because I support Stacey Abrams.
Hold on a second.
Ryan,
I
Ryan,
need to
they don't march in DC, Ryan. Like, that's the difference, right? Like, you're pointing to, I agree with you. Hillary Clinton said that. Stacey Abrams said that. You know what they didn't do? They didn't organize a rally. They didn't tweet about it. Peter Navarro didn't tweet about it. They didn't have all of these other subsidiary people organize an event. Like, look, this is not rocket science. It happened. The revolution was televised. We all saw it that day of what happened. Like, I agree with you that the American people want to move on from that. But if you can't acknowledge that it happened, how can we move on from something? If you can't meet me in the middle of the sky is blue and the sun is yellow, how are we supposed to have a conversation?
I completely agree with you. January 6th was horrible and it was disgusting. Nonetheless, and yet still, if you care about the institution of democracy, Democrats have been disenfranchising it for 20 years since the Bush election.
That's a complete lie.
They said Ohio was stolen in 04.
When you get finished with your talking point,
hold on. Don't talk over each other. Van, finish your point. Go ahead.
You're letting him ramble on with these talking points that you could pull out of a Cracker Jack box. Listen, if you're serious about democracy, you cannot try to normalize what Donald Trump did. Listen, yes, you have spoiled brats and sore losers after every Little League game. That's not what we're talking about. Yes, there have been Democrats who were unhappy with the Supreme Court giving 2002 W. What we've always had, though, is something called a concession speech. That's the key. The key in our country is that when all of the processes are done, when the Supreme Court has made its final decision, when the final votes have been tallied and they've been affirmed, when the Congress has acted, at some point there's something called the concession speech. And the fact that we never got a concession speech from Donald Trump, and may not this time, is what puts the whole republic at risk. And you cannot normalize the refusal to give a concession speech, which Hillary Clinton did do, grumpy perhaps, unhappy perhaps, but she gave the concession speech. She did not organize a riot. Everybody that you just mentioned gave a concession speech. Donald Trump has never conceded. He continues to whip up the American people. He continues to try to undermine our democracy, and he organized an insurrection. That cannot be normalized. And all the talking points that the right wing throws out there about this person complained about this election, and Stacey Abrams, said something that was, unwelcome or ungenerous. That does not excuse what Donald Trump has done and is doing to our country.
Well, I wanted to be clear one thing, just so because I know the audience is just seeing. We had three people, in addition to myself, on the screen. Ryan is no longer on. Did Ryan drop from the conversation, or he inadvertently dropped from the conversation? Do we have? It was a technical issue. Okay, I just want to make sure everyone knows he was not intentional. We did not drop him from the conversation. Okay, everyone. So don't get at me on this.
Don't put that out there.
But I will just say, I'm just saying, don't even start with me. Okay.
He'll be back tomorrow.
But I will tell you this. But I will tell you this. It is very difficult for the American electorate as a whole to ignore the fact that that question about the peaceful condition of power is still out there. Why? Because there's not the same running mate next to Donald Trump any longer. Right? His name is not Mike Pence. Right. It's now JD Vance. That sparks some questions. Ryan, thank you. Van and Mike, stand by, okay?